Now, Ben, come along, you long-haired layabout. We've got a comedy dining experience for a hard day's night to record. Ho, ho, ho.
I'm looking forward to this one. I think
Hello.
Hello. I don't think I've actually watched this one in a long while. I don't
Really?
think. I mean, I've seen it. I don't need. It's one of those films I don't need to watch. I just close my eyes and it just sort of appears.
It's just there.
Yeah, it's just there. So yeah. Right then, what are we doing? What's happening?
Right, well, joining us today, we are recording a commentary for the Beatles film, A Hard Day's Night.
You said it, brother.
And surprisingly, Ben, this was actually a requested episode.
I was just about to suggest this. Didn't someone requested this one?
Someone did request this one, and I'm going to find their name right now.
Is that your first request?
We've had other requests before, but this was the first good one.
You know, some YouTubers get requests for, like, you know, invitations to sexual encounters or, you know, exciting journeys around the world. We just get invitations to watch films we've already seen.
Yes, this request came courtesy of GDawg. GDawg 15.
So that's dog as in dog.
Dawg. GDawg 15.
Well, GDawg 15, this one's for you.
He says,
Enjoy.
Can you review the Beatles A Hard Day's Night?
Right. I think that can be arranged, GDawg 55.
Well, we hope you enjoy.
I don't know if we should trust this person, Dan. I don't think that's his real name.
Maybe he's going to use the audio from this commentary to supercut us into saying silly things.
I think he lied to us, Dan. Why didn't you use your real name? You imposter.
Mr. GDawg.
Mr. quote dog. End quote.
Etc. etc. So yeah, we're going to do the Beatles, A Hard Day's Night, and this film has some personal drive from Ben. He's a big Beatlehead. He's all in on the Beatles lifestyle.
For better or worse, yeah. It's I'm going to try not to be too boring, because I imagine most hardcore Beatles fans would probably know a lot of this stuff. But you know, it's always nice to talk about. It's one of those things that I never get bored of talking about, as you will attest to, grudgingly. Yeah.
You described it to me before as it was kind of like a never-ending chasm of information, and you felt compelled to learn it all.
Well, that's how I feel about most of the things I like, such as, you know, James Bond and the Beatles and dogging. Yeah, I mean, I won't go on too. I guess I will go on. I mean, that's sort of the idea of a commentary, isn't it? If you're not going on, then I guess that sort of defeats the point.
We're just both sort of sat here silently, occasionally shouting things.
Occasionally, you'll hear one of us like ruffling, or reaching for a drink, or or coughing, or the police knocking on the door.
The best ones.
The best ones.
Yes, the best commentaries.
It's going to be like, I'm going to do it like the William Friedkin commentary for the Exorcist 2000 version, where he spends most of it in stone silence. And every now and then, it's so bizarre. Like he did one for the Exorcist, as in the original film, and it's really good. It's like dead informative, and he's very like funny and animated throughout. And then he did another one for the one they did in 2000. It was like the re-release with like the spider walk and all the like Pazuzu faces put in it. And he's just like silent through the whole thing. Or like Ken Russell's commentary on Listomania is the exact same. It's like, what's the point? I could just sit here in silence and watch the film. I don't need to pay $5 for that privilege.
It's because they get lots and lots of lovely money to sit there and not say anything.
Yeah, Arnold Schwarzenegger got paid $15 million for that Total Recall commentary, the one where he just describes what's happening on screen.
Bloody hell!
That's money that me and you will never see in our lives, as long as we
our
live.
Entire combined income,
our combined
for life
lives
put together,
we'll never see that amount. And he got that amount for just sitting there and doing commentary for the blind. I guess that's some benefit.
Well, that's true.
But that's not what was advertised.
The best part of it is the audio description was just the commentary recycled.
Yeah, they just saved money on audio description. I'll do that for this, I think. Okay, and here's George Harrison. He is now fallen over, and they are running, and there's lots of girls. It is so funny.
There is Wilfrid Bramley. He's a very clean man.
And if you want to make it like the Total Recall one, have Paul Verhoeven, who every now and then will try and chip in and actually do some actual commentary by talking about the themes of the film and, the philosophies behind it, only to be cut off by, oh look, Sharon Stone just kicked me in the face. That's so funny.
Right. Well, we've dillied so long. Let's finally dally.
Let us dilly no more.
We have the screen queued up. Now, the version we were using had two Miramax logos at the beginning of it that
we've warning.
Skipped past. We've skipped past those because we can't be arsed with them.
Luckily, Mr. Sexpest no longer owns the rights to this film, which is good. Can only be a good thing.
Absolutely.
I do used to like the old logo, Miramax logo. That kind of makes me nostalgic. With the big swirling blue M. So.
Oh yeah, it's cracking stuff. Well, the version that we're doing today has one title card before the initial guitar strike that starts the film.
Yeah.
Ben has informed me that on his copy of the film that title card is removed. So
yeah, literally you press play and then the film, boom, chord you in.
Cracking. So we will get started then. We will get this party rolling. We're on a black screen and they are going to hit play in 3, 2, 1, go.
So that's missing from mine, a Walter Shenson production. Poor Walter Shenson. Ding! Right, I just synced you. That's the great thing about this film is that it has an actual sync point in the first frame.
You can sync it to the strike.
It was beneficial, which was very beneficial for us.
Yes.
Hard Day's Night, also starring Wilfrid Brambell.
Ah.
Right. This is God. There's so much to say. Really, there's almost too much. Really, like you just watch this film and it's kind of like basically everything in terms of like the way music is depicted on screen, not just in films but in videos and MTV and everything. You could basically track to this.
Pretty much. Well, I mean, why don't you tell us a little bit about how the film got made in the first place? What was the sort of preamble to this being made? I guess
the idea was that back then, bands just made films as a given. That was just expected. Like Elvis made a bunch of films, and Cliff Richard did, and obviously it was a given that as soon as the Beatles had any whiff of success, then a film would inevitably come. But there was an effort by them because they approached a guy. This is directed by a guy called Richard Lester, who had directed films for the Goons.
Oh, right.
Spike Milligan and Peter Sellers and all that lot. And he later went on to make some of the Superman films. I think he made the crap ones. I think he did like Superman 3, the one where he's an alcoholic. And they went to Richard Lester because he'd worked with the Goons and because their humour was very similar. John Lennon was a big Goons fan. And they basically, the idea was they didn't want it to be like a typical band film. And what I mean is like typical musician films around this time would be like, it's about a guy or a singer who's down on his luck. He falls in love with a girl, but the girl's in love with this bad guy, and he has to get the big record contract, and he has to race and win the big show, and then at the end he kisses the girl and they play a song and it's all great. They didn't want to do that because they said that's naff, that's rubbish. So they said, well, it'll be more like a documentary, but not like an actual documentary, but it's a fictionalized version of, what life was like at that time. And the guy who wrote this is a guy called Alan Owen, who followed them around on tour for about a week, basically to get an idea of life in this hell mania world that they were in. There's a line later on where Grandad's like, I was expecting adventure, but so far I've been in a room and a car and a room and a train and a room and a room. And that's basically what life was like, just rooms, cars, trains. So even though this film is obviously, dramatized and takes some liberties, there's a bit of it's based on some level of reality, is what I'm saying. Yeah.
I mean, it's surprising, especially that opening sequence, how even just a very minor rescoring suddenly transforms it from being a quite high energy action packed thing into a nightmare.
You told me when you watched this last night that you said, I'm thinking of rescoring the opening scene with some horrifying music.
Just put some goblin in,
Put Put some Brian Eno in there at his most creepiest.
Yeah, tubular bells.
Yeah. Well, that was you can thank Ringo for the title of the film and the song, because they basically, Richard Lester had said to them, right lads, we need a song for the opening. What have you got? And they were filming on that same day, and apparently they came out of the set and Ringo was going, oh, it's been a hard days, and it was night, so he looked around and went, night. Finished. So they decided that was going to be the title for the title song and the film, and there was apparently a bit of a competition between John and Paul for who would write the title song. John Lennon apparently ran home, wrote it that night, and came back the next day, and there you have it.
Blimey. It's good, isn't it?
It's, yeah.
Because they were well known for their efficiency with writing songs, weren't they? They were quite well known for just like bringing in like tons of stuff straight away.
Oh yeah, you had to be just because of the way the music industry was. You had to churn out tunes. That's why you get so many bands back then who would just record like albums that consisted of like the one big hit single and then a bunch of covers, and then that was it. But the Beatles were extremely prolific in that instance, and we need to talk about Wilfrid Brambell.
Yes.
Yeah.
So I don't know, people who are coming to this film for the first time or may not necessarily be as broadly aware of UK television and history of television will be unaware of why they keep referring to Wilfrid Brambell as a clean old man. It's because he had a stint in the BBC comedy series Steptoe and Son, where he played Albert Steptoe, whose catchphrase that was said to him was always infamously, "You dirty old man," because he was always a pervert.
You dirty old man.
You dirty old man.
So that's why everyone in this film is like, "Oh, what a clean old man." That would have been topical humour at the time.
It would have been.
And I just want to say that everyone says that John Lennon makes a sniffing Coke joke there, where he sort of sniffs the bottom of the bottle, but it's not Coke, it's Pepsi.
Ah.
So
that joke doesn't work.
That is debunked officially by me.
Please never mention it again.
Please don't mention it again. Even though that probably was what he intended.
Yeah.
But whatever.
Did we miss Ringo's line?
Which one?
The one where he goes something like, "He's a little old man, isn't he? Ha 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 ha."
Oh, when he goes, "Oh, if it's your grandfather, who knows? Ha 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 ha."
Yeah.
That line. You know what? That bit aside, Ringo's actually pretty good in this. And considering
he's not bad.
He had a very fairly long Hollywood career after the Beatles.
He did. He played a caveman in the movie Caveman.
He did play. That's the second time we've talked about that film today. He met his wife, Barbara Bach.
Yes, who was the star of our previous film, The Spy Who Loved Me.
More Bond connections, Dan. That man was in Goldfinger. He's the guy He's the guy who gives Bond the gold bar near the start of the film.
Blimey!
Yeah, it's all in the same continuity.
It's all coming together. He was actually on the train to go and get the gold bar.
Yeah, he's got a gold bullion bar in his briefcase right now. That's why he was able to carry it with such ease.
And one of the things also I noticed quite quickly with this film is that it tries to establish the sort of character archetypes very, very early on.
Yeah.
So straight away, John is the bad boy and Paul's kind of the measured response sort of character.
That was very deliberate. That sort of image was called that predates the film, but this film definitely helped cement that idea. And I think a few of those came to resent that because, Paul is depicted as the sensible, quiet, nice one, but he wasn't always that way. Sometimes he could be the loudest, just as sometimes John could be the quietest. It helps in a way because it sort of cements the idea of band as like gang. Like I think if you cut out the sex references and all the scenes where they're smoking, you could probably recast this film with boys who are like 12 to 15, and I think it would play fine. You probably have to cut out all the bits where they're smoking fags, though. That might be right.
I like this bit.
And the Beatles have reality warping powers. Because of course they do.
I like to think that this is the film that the Monkees' head could have been.
Well, obviously, the Monkees, or certainly the people who created the Monkees, were definitely watching this when they came up with that.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. Well, this was another thing as well. I'd never seen this film until I watched it the other night for the purpose of this commentary. And one of the first things that struck me was there are two comedians in the UK called Harry Enfield and Paul Whitehouse, and they
I know
they've
you're
done
going to say, yeah.
they've done a series of sketches around the Beatles, but like if they existed now and they were still doing this kind of stuff. And at first, when I watched them before I'd seen this film, I just assumed it was kind of just playing on the sort of early iconography of them. I didn't realise they were literally just lifting this film's style.
Yeah,
like wholesale.
Much. Even the manager, played by Norman Rosington there, who's played by the guy in the Harry and Paul sketches, he's played by that guy who's in everything, whose name I can never remember.
He's got a very strong northern twang.
You know who I mean, don't you?
Yeah.
I'm sorry I don't remember your name, actor. I walked past you once in Manchester. I didn't say hello. I'm sorry. Yeah, they're playing a manager who's very much unlike their real manager, Brian Epstein, who was a very quiet, sensitive gay man. Certainly not the, no, look at you, long-haired layabouts type guy. And there's Patty Boyd, who George Harrison would marry 18 months later. Is
that the same woman who Eric Clapton ended up stealing?
Yes. She, she's had a very colourful life. She married George Harrison, and then she ended up with Eric Clapton after Eric Clapton basically stole her away, and George Harrison was like, all right.
I've got to go and make some films about people travelling through time and being alcoholics.
I know. I imagine there was probably a little more drama in real life, but I like to think of Eric just going up to George and going, can I have your wife? All right, great, see you.
Take care.
See you tomorrow. Yeah, but that's another story. And John Junkin's very funny. He's the guy playing Shake, you know, the lanky guy.
Yeah.
Who's obsessed with height.
Well, this is the thing. I mean, as well, another thing that was painfully sort of noticeable, particularly with just this early set of sequences, was how mildly uncomfortable it is to see these four pop artists slowly trying to creep on what is effectively supposed to be, but clearly aren't, schoolgirls. Yeah,
that's a little strange. I mean, it's I think that's why I think if you recast this film as an experiment and recast them as young boys as opposed to younger men, I think the film would still kind of work.
Yeah, no, I'd agree. In fact, in some ways, it would probably make it work better than it currently does.
Possibly, yeah. I suppose it helps, like you say, that the schoolgirls are clearly played by women who are not schoolgirls. But still, it's a little strange.
It's a little bit rum.
Don't worry, we're not cancelling the Beatles. It's all fine.
Can we just do it for fun so we, get those hate clicks?
We're just doing it for attention and fame, basically.
I never liked Paul McCartney. I knew he was up to something.
Oh dear. So who was the best actor of the four, you reckon? Wilfrid Brambell.
He probably was. No, if you're talking about the Fab Four, I'd say probably. I think Ringo simultaneously owns the best and worst of it, because his opening sequence with the, ha ha ha, is terrible. But later on in the film, particularly when Wilfrid Bramley is trying to kind of turn him against the band, he really kind of comes into his own a little bit. Yeah. And he gives a very genuine performance.
Yeah, I love that little story of Ringo going off and having a little adventure. Well, that's not coming up till later. And look at that giant microphone. Oh, no, it's not a microphone, it's a bike.
I thought the same thing when I saw it. I was like, booming? And then it was like, oh, wait, no, I see a bell. It's not.
When I first saw that, I thought it was a microphone. And then when I watched it on Blu-ray, I realised it was a bike. And I cannot tell the difference between bikes and microphones, apparently.
I mean, if you're talking sort of general worst performer throughout, John isn't great. Although I'd very much get the vibe that he feels like he's a bit too cool for this.
Yeah, well, John's too cool for school. So that's probably why. They're all good in their own ways. Paul's a little stilted at times. I mean, anyone who's seen the film Give My Regards to Broad Street will attest to that. That's one we should watch. That's fun. And when I say fun, I mean an experience.
Send me a WhatsApp with it on, and I'll try and track a copy down and see what it's going on about.
Yeah, so we've got our second number. Bit of a pot boiler, as they used to call it, basically meaning a song that was dashed off quickly and efficiently. But even the songs like this, which are clearly, very lightweight, they're not the sort of... We're a way away from the Rubber Soul, Revolver, Sgt. Pepper era, where they were just making masterpieces. But that's not to say that the music in this isn't good. I love the music in this. I've got the album on. I've owned it on CD, vinyl,
8-track,
stone
carvings,
laserdisc, ticker tape.
Stone carvings,
digital reconstruction.
flipbook.
Flipbook. There's Patty Boyd again. She gets a lot of screen time.
She does. It's because George Harrison was going to marry her. So
is that they knew somehow when they cast her.
They were like, I don't know. I just have this feeling that this girl is going to marry George Harrison and end up with Eric Clapton.
What do you reckon?
I say include her in the film. I think she would be fair gear.
Oh yeah. I mean, I like these little. I think it's this bit. No. Wilfrid Brambell's look of disgust in a minute. He doesn't like all this long-haired, crazy rock and roll styling.
I like to think that he initially tried to join in and then just thought it was a load of rubbish and was like, ah.
I just love the idea. I just love the idea that he's even in the film. I love the idea that you've got this crazy rock and roll film about these long-haired, youthful renegades, and in the middle of it, you've got the most rebellious character, or the most anarchistic character, is the old man who spouts Irish nationalist cant and shouts at policemen and gate crashes operas.
I'm not going to lie, when later in the film he starts basically, saying one country again, I was a bit like, okay, we're...
It's just so funny that it's in this kind of film.
Yeah. It'd be a bit like if in Spice World Roger Moore was just tagging along.
That would be crazy, wouldn't it?
It would be great.
That'd be like if you had a film and you had Richard E. Grant as the manager.
Yeah,
that'd be bonkers.
That'd be crazy.
I like his hat.
Who would make that? I would like that hat as well. It's a good hat.
But yeah, so you can probably tell straight away from looking at it. It's very. The other weird thing about the film is that it's very much for a film that was designed to cash in on what was imagined to be a fad. It's very arty and French and Nouvelle Vogue. Richard Lester clearly seen his Jean-Luc Godard films.
Clearly.
Because
there's a lot of very quick cuts. And
lots of quick cuts, lots of handheld cameras, lots of jump
nice
cuts.
transitions.
Yeah. Which what I mean is it's not unusual that a film was doing that. What's unusual is the fact that it was in this kind of film that was made just to sell some records.
Yeah, when you consider that the films that had come before this were things like Summer Holiday and GI Blues.
Oh God, Summer Holiday! What a vomit fest that is. I mean, I like it. You know what? I like Elvis's first few he did. I think it's King Carole and Loving You, Jailhouse Rock. They're great. It's when he joins the army, that's when those films start to turn into stinkers.
Become a little bit more recruitment driven and just about singing about what's in front of them.
Oh God, anyone who's seen Change of Habit or Viva Las Vegas will attest to that. Viva Las Vegas is just unwatchable to me. I hate that film. But let's talk
I'm going to make a mental note, but please continue.
Well, let's talk about nice things like this film.
So Ben, what is your favourite Beatle?
My favourite Beatle?
Yes.
I don't know.
You don't have a favourite Beatle?
I like them all. I guess in terms of I can only say it in terms of if we're talking this film, I really like George Harrison. I think he's got a very funny, deadpan sort of dour thing going on. As much as I like John Lennon, I think, like you were saying before, he's got that impression of the popular kid at school, the class clown. He's just trying a bit too hard. You know what I mean?
Most of the film could best be summed up as him kind of snarking out the lines that are written for him because he feels that they aren't good enough.
It's a world of difference from the potheads that they would eventually portray in the next film. We might get to that one day. I don't know, but and here's another Bond connection. The casino he's invited to is the same one from Dr. No.
You know what? I sat watching it last night and I thought that casino looks really familiar.
It's the same one.
Yeah.
Well, this was a United artist as well. I'm telling you, same continuity.
Same universe.
The Beatles Bond cinematic universe.
No wonder Connery doesn't like him.
All the idea of Connery going past him and giving him dead stared looks.
He just sort of sees them off in the distance, and all he can hear in the vague distance is ho 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 ho.
He's got a pair of earmuffs on.
Yeah. Oh, not you again. I thought I ordered you to be killed.
I thought I had Q dispatch you. I mean...
Sorry, Mr. Bond. We're a creation of Mr. Q.
I love the idea that the manager would expect them to just sit there all night answering fan mail. Even back then, they have people who do that.
Well, it's because they've got to keep the illusion up to the proles, Ben.
I wonder if this was the scene that inspired Ringo to make that video. I am sending you peace and love. Now fuck off with your fan mail.
Peace and love, no autographs.
I am warning you with peace and love, you cunts.
I am rich enough to afford every slice of Viennetta. Go away.
I want to be your man. This is a song that they originally wrote for their mates Mick and Keith from the Rolling Stones.
I could hear it.
Yeah, which the Rolling Stones did record. Their version's a little slower, a little bluesier, a bit sexier. This is obviously a bit more of a rave up, which is great. They're both good. They're both good in their own way. I prefer this.
Agreed.
I prefer this version because I'm biased.
Yeah.
I love there's something really interesting and cool about the jumps between the club scenes and Paul's grandfather being a creepy old man in a casino, looking at a pair of tits. And she's in Goldfinger and all.
Blimey.
It's Dink. She's the one who gets assaulted by Sean Connery because of man talk.
Oh, jeez. She gets the pat. Is she the pat on the bum person?
She's the pat on the bum girl.
Oh, blimey.
She's the one who's like, man talk.
I'm just hearing a Tim and Eric style. Whoosh, whoosh.
Oh, dear.
So yeah, I put some serious thought into what I think my favourite Beatle was, and I think I've decided it was probably Paul.
Yeah, that's fair to say. I think
because I mean I looked at the careers both as Beatles and after, and Paul kind of seems like the most mellow throughout most of the Beatles run. I mean, I know he got upset a few times, but that was more at the band in general than stuff that was going on.
He's an interesting bloke. I think he was the one when it was all sort of falling apart later on. He was the one who really wanted to keep it going. I think if he had the choice, he wouldn't have let them split up. But it was out of his control by that point anyway. But one thing, that's the thing everything I've read about Paul, he always seemed like a very dedicated, very driven person. And I think that sometimes can be a flaw as well as a strength. Because I think that there can be a bit of a, not thinking about others too much situation.
Yeah.
Anyone who's seen the Let It Be film can, work that one out for themselves.
Yeah. I mean, another thing as well that's a real problem with driven people in particular is they don't tend to have a lot of awareness on when to let go of a project, when to kind of say, this is it.
And it's weird because everyone and I think this film helped sort of cement that idea of John as the quote unquote leader of the group. But when you get to Revolver and Sgt. Pepper and Magical Mystery Tour, it was Paul who's masterminded all that. He was the one who came up with the Sgt. Pepper idea. He came up with Magical Mystery Tour. He was like. I get the impression that Paul's very much like the ideas man. Like he's just very creative, and John and George were very good at. They were doers, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
As opposed to.
Well, I mean, I was going to say, what was the quote you told me last night about Paul talking about John?
There's an old interview where Paul is talking about this idea of John as leader. And he says something like, John always used to go around saying, I'm the leader of this group, I'm the leader of this group. And we used to say, it's only because you fucking shout louder than everyone else. No one else cares about being the leader. Yeah, although I think if we really thought about it, I think Paul might have cared about being the leader later on.
Well, yeah, I mean, like I say, if he wanted to keep it going, if he had the chance to, but then
John
his post-career was good.
Lip syncs aren't matching up with the song. Rubbish, delete,
dear.
Ding.
Go away. 1 out of 10 cancelled.
Beatles sins.
But yeah, I mean, like Paul's post career, you got Wings, you got his own sort of solo work himself.
I love his solo stuff. Band on the Run's a fantastic album.
Oh yeah, Jet,
Ram,
Live and Let Die, Coming Up.
Anyone, I think people should have a listen to Ram. It's like the first indie rock album, and it was made in 1971. It's a very good album, and he basically recorded it almost all by himself. But yeah, I mean, I don't really like to pick favourites as much, to be honest. I think that they all, the reason why none of the solo careers were as were as good for me is because they all existed as one unit. If you were to take even one component of that, then it all kind of falls apart. It's what people in suits would call synergy. That's just a normal occurrence in the Beatles' adventures. Elvis is on that magazine.
Oh, nice.
Yeah.
Should we do any retakes, boss? Nah, that was perfect.
You on about the slight edit there that didn't match?
I was on about the Paul's delivery of gambling clubs.
He's probably in the middle of some orgy by now.
Orgy, yeah! Okay then, so let's just get to the nitty gritty, the clean cut questions of this film. Which Beatle do you reckon you could take in a fight?
If I had to fight them?
If, say, you've got all the Beatles lined up and each one of them wants a crack at you and you're going to fight them, which Beatle do you reckon you could take in a fight? And which ones do you reckon you wouldn't be able to take in a fight?
I reckon George would probably beat me up in a fight.
Well, didn't George beat up a burglar at one point?
Well, the burglar sort of nearly beat up him. That's a whole unpleasant thing. But I think George could probably beat me up in a fight. And I'd fight Ringo just to tell people I'd fought Ringo. It'd be a really good anecdote, for like parties and things.
I decked Ringo.
Yeah.
I'll be getting that on t-shirts.
It was like an old gossip column where it's like, I met Ringo, I decked Ringo.
I was thinking of getting them on t-shirts like I shot JR.
I shot RS.
I decked RS. The only thing I'd be wary of with fighting Ringo is obviously at this time, wasn't he a rampant alcoholic?
Not at this time.
No.
Later on, yeah, but...
If I was fighting him during his alcoholic years, I'd probably lose, and the only reason being is, when people have had a bit to drink, they tend to be a little bit more able to take punches without really feeling stuff. I think I'd probably take John. I think John strikes me as the kind of person who talks a hard game, but if you decked him once, and
John was a bit of a fighter in his younger days. He's always punching, knocking shit out of people. And why is he wearing a hat in the bath? Well, that's beside the point.
Why is George shaving the manager's face in the mirror?
He's demonstrating to him how to shave, I guess. I suppose if you do it in a mirror, it's safer than doing it on someone's chin.
Yeah, true.
He's wearing shorts in the bath.
Why is he? Why? Why is John? Question mark.
Well, presumably the shorts were so that we didn't see John's penis during that scene.
But we saw it anyway 10 years later.
We did. Yeah, we did. Not even 10 years. And this is proof as well that the Beatles have superpowers. John apparently has the ability to teleport.
So are these guys just running with Kiss-level superpowers here, or...?
They're basically cosmic overlords. That's why we should be scared of them.
Is this why Sean Connery wanted no dealings with them, then?
We should terrify, fear, and respect them.
But mainly fear them.
Mainly fear. Now, imagine, a lot of these girls were real, when I say real, I mean, they're obviously real people. I mean, real fans. Who didn't really need much encouragement to scream their little bollocks off.
Jesus.
I like this little bit. This is very French New Wave-esque with all the camera panning and the quick cuts, and it's great.
It's nice. It's the singing and direction, like you say, is very, very, very top notch for a film like this, which is quite surprising, really. Again, given that the genre of pop rock artist films
Yeah,
was so underdeveloped at the time.
All the critics went in just expecting to hate it, and then all the reviews at the time were written with a tone of, "Oh, well, it's quite good actually." Yeah, like they weren't expecting it to be good, but oh yeah, never look at that. Fancy that. I like this little joke when none of them get a canapé. Maybe the waitress just really doesn't like them for whatever reason. She's more into the Hollies.
I mean, I'm more disappointed at the fact that Pete Best's film that came out the same year didn't really get the same level of recognition.
Pete Best's film?
Not Pete Best. Pete Best? Beatles.
Yeah, the guy who was in the Beatles, and so they kicked him out. What film?
Sorry, I was thinking of George Best. Yeah. It was a failed gag. Ben, you've made me have a failed gag.
That's just early onset dementia. That.
No, you were supposed to be all like Pete Best's movie. Yeah, obviously the film that the fifth Beatle made to try and compete with the Beatles.
It was called a soft day's evening.
A daft night's day.
A daft night's day. Apparently, according to IMDb, John Lennon writes the word tits on that piece of paper.
Oh.
I wonder if anyone's been able to verify that. Maybe we'll find that actress and ask her.
You want to dig out your Criterion copy and start zooming in?
Yeah, I mean she's probably dead now, obviously. But
probably.
Yeah, everyone in this scene is dead. She's dead. He's
dead. I liked
She's
this
dead.
sequence. I thought all of the one-liners were very nice, very well written.
Ringo's line about are you a mod or a rocker? No, I'm a mocker. He said that on some TV show the previous year. I mean, I think that there was obviously a script, but I get the impression that, you know, there was a lot of ad-libs and a lot of things that were just come up with on the day sort of thing. Especially from John.
Oh, yeah. No, absolutely. It seems like a lot of this film was very fluid.
Yeah, I think that's the impression of, like, it was very casual, and I think that's what was needed because obviously these are just four guys who've never made a film before. So I think it would have been intimidating to be like this a quote-unquote proper film. Do you know what I mean by proper film? It's like not like a documentary type thing.
Yeah. Because I mean with a documentary at least they can kind of relax into their own selves.
Well, this is a semi-documentary. It's like obviously fiction, but it's shot like this, like while the cameras have been handheld, as if this is something we're not meant to see.
Yeah.
You know.
One of the things
that was make the act of like just walking on a stage just brilliant. Do you know what I mean? Like they just make the simple act of walking down some steps onto a stage, and they just make it look like the funnest thing.
Yeah.
Everything was great at this point.
It's a really electric film from a pacing standpoint. Everything is now. Cut.
Great. It does everything right. It really does. It's one of my favorites.
It just gives you that like bits like this, for example, just give you enough breathing space.
Yeah.
Before the next big ramp up of, you know.
We've got on our next number, If I Fell.
Yeah.
This is a nice song. I like the fact that they're singing it to Ringo as well. There's something weirdly sweet about that. And I like the fact that like there's like we were saying about old band movies, is that a lot of the reasons to play songs would be quite contrived. It'd be like, we got to do the big show and impress the promoter and get the record contracts so that the girl will shag us, that kind of thing. I think that's the exact dialogue. I might be wrong, but I think that's exactly what they say. And I like the fact that in this film, well, there's the pretense that they're rehearsing for a TV show, but most of the time they just play songs because it's like the film's going, well, it's time for a song now.
Yeah, that was one of the other things. I mean, there's a few natural ones. There's a bit further up in the film where they sort of step out of a fire exit, and the moment they step out, the song begins.
That's brilliant. We'll get to that, but yeah, like
stuff like this just kind of feels like, okay, we got to put a song in now. So
yeah, but I like that. I like the fact that they just get on with it. They know that, look, you're here to watch the Beatles play some music and have a laugh, so they're going to do that. They don't have to come up with some silly, like, you know what I mean? Oh, George knocks the amp down. Silly George.
Oh dear.
I think on the DVD they actually had like a little boomf sound effect. It's like the stormtrooper hitting his head in Star Wars.
Do they just redub this film with the DeWolf library of funny sound effects? Like, there's loads of boings.
But it's like you were saying about the looseness of it, like stuff like that, like George knocking over the amp. That just like just wasn't meant to happen, but it did, and it works better for it.
Yeah, I mean, there must have been some level of structuring because obviously they couldn't just turn up somewhere and do stuff.
Yeah,
but
there was obviously a script and stuff worked out, but there was also room within that to just sort of let things happen and just sort of see where they go from there.
I think it maybe sits somewhere between creative freedom and the curb process, as in they have a vague idea of what they wanted to achieve that day with the scenes.
Well,
but they largely kind of work.
It's really hard. It's really hard, in my opinion, to make really good films about music or like films about pop or rock, because pop and rock music is all about immediacy. It's all about that brevity. It's about that quick 2-minute burst of excitement, and film as a medium isn't really suited to that, is it?
No.
Because films are long. So it's hard to sort of sustain that excitement over that 90 minutes or 2 hours. And I think this film is one of the rare few that does that.
Yeah, absolutely. And equally, another thing as well is, as you said with music, it's kind of an in-the-moment kind of thing where, something that's popular now might not necessarily be in 10 minutes.
Exactly, yeah.
But,
and the thing
but film is a little bit more sort of immortal in that sense. What you're putting on film tends to be, if it's commercially released, tends to last a lot longer than most albums probably would.
We tend to like music on a far more emotional level than films, because with films it's very easy to pore over them and dissect every frame, and go to film school and talk about things like mise en scène and production value. Whereas music, you don't really have to explain why a good song is good. If you hear it, you know it's good.
I mean, that doesn't stop people like Todd in the Shadows trying, but...
Oh, no, I love stuff like Todd in the Shadows and things like that. And what I'm saying is you can talk about that, but I think you don't have to.
Yeah, it's more emotive.
A song, if you know a good song, you know it. It just speaks to you on some level. And that's why I think it's hard to really translate that into film.
I love that gag.
Yeah.
I love that gag.
So as well as being an IRA agent, he also kills birds. You can see why they got the bloke who worked with the Goons to help make this film.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
Yeah,
absolutely.
If anyone wants to go and watch the Running, Jumping and Standing Still film, that's the film that Richard Lester made before this with the Goons, and it's very and you can very much see an influence from that to this in terms of style. Oh,
Keep an eye out for that one.
This is great. Richard Lester says something like this scene was important because all through the film, the film's very claustrophobic. It's very like you're trapped in rooms and stages and trains, and it's nice to just get out in the open and just have this big wide moment where they just get to play for lack of a better word.
I seem to remember there was a extract from the Beatles anthology series where they played in Japan, and they tried to sneak out for some time, and basically they ended up being mobbed, and they had to basically flee to the airport or something like that.
I mean, that probably happened everywhere they went at this point, especially 64, 65. And trivia fans, John Lennon was not there for these wide shots. Yeah, he was off promoting his book, so the guy running around in John's place is a double.
It's just nice to have that kind of open air after such a, I don't want to say suffocating because it's very, very nicely put together, but like you say, after being sort of enclosed for so long, to have them sort of go out and do their own thing and just have it be a bit mad for a bit.
This film, in a way, captures a very, very innocent period for the Beatles. Before things got very serious and very dark and fucked up. There's just something really nice and melancholy about these scenes where they're just running about being twats in a field.
Do you know much about the locations, or...?
No. I know a lot of it was filmed in and around London. I think some of it was filmed in Kent. I don't know where that field is. Maybe we should go there sometime.
Well, I was going to say, if we could find it.
And we'll just do this shot for shot.
We will. We'll make a full-blown...
We'll get a drone to recreate all these aerial shots, and then We'll be
we'll ship Laura and Raymond down, and we'll make it happen.
We'll be laughing. So yeah, you'll see John's not there because he had a book out called In His Own Right, and he was off. He had to go and plug that.
We can just assume, for this sake, that he used his magical teleporting powers.
I didn't see it that way. Yes, I like your theory. I'm going with that. He teleported away for that bit. I think you actually see John's. There it is. Yeah, there's John's book in the background there. Nice little subliminal bit of advertising.
It's a little bit of an accidental partridge, if you ask me, but...
Well, the film's made to plug the Beatles, essentially. It's a 90-minute advert.
Do you reckon that John said that to Paul?
Said what?
Well, the film's supposed to be a giant advert anyway. Let me shove my book in it for a bit.
Probably said to Paul, do you have a book? No? Then we're not putting it in. This is cute.
Mm.
Everyone gets a little solo scene now to shine, except Paul, because that was cut. Sorry, Paul.
It was deemed too dreamy for cinemas.
Well, that would come later. This is probably the best John Lennon is in the film, because I'm talking about the character of the film, John Lennon. He actually shows a bit of vulnerability in this one, and a bit of tenderness, which I think is more in line with what John Lennon was actually like.
Yeah.
You know, someone who seemed very tough and hard and cool, but he actually had this quite, sensitive, quite emotional core to him at the best of it. He did not say that.
No, he did not.
Well, he did, but not on the day.
It was recorded in between A Hard Day's Night and Help. They just did that one line. Now, here's the thing. UTV stands for Ulster Television, which, given Wilfrid Bramley's character in this, makes this even more hilarious. But it's even more hilarious still, given that this is clearly set in London.
I look forward to your video, which talks about how Hard Day's Night is actually subliminal messaging for Irish nationalism. It's
pro-IRA propaganda.
It's pro-IRA propaganda.
There was a dropped, deleted scene near the end where they did a Beatles-esque cover of "Come Out, You Black and Tans."
They watched this on the Good Friday Agreement.
And if you look closely, you can clearly see Irish nationalism was inevitable at this point.
I think this is why George is my favourite in this film. He's just so cool, and he's just cool in a very effortless way. Like when he's looking at the weird architecture outside, and he's like, "You don't see a lot of these nowadays, do you?" Now, this might interest you, Dan, but that actor, Kenneth Haig, at the time that they were filming this, was playing Caligula on stage.
Really?
It's all connected.
Oh, God blimey. This film is literally us.
Everything makes sense. The number 23, look for those.
Where does Nutbag fit into this?
Well, I'm sure there's a bald bloke at some point.
Nick Palumbo's great-great-great-grandfather is one of those two men in the background.
He's one of the policemen.
Yes.
He's one of the 20 policemen who chases after them at the end.
He's the policeman who has a go at Wilfrid Bramley when he turns up in the first instance.
This is a great bit of class war in this scene. Like, you've got this very upper to middle class guy who's brilliant. Kenneth Haig's really funny, like especially that bit where he's like, "You really dig these? They're hip, they're fab," and all the other. Yeah, and then you've got George Harrison who's just like, "I wouldn't be seen dead in them. They're grotty." Which apparently was the word grotty was invented by this film.
Oh, blimey!
Yeah,
really?
Well, apparently because Alan Owen, the writer, had written the line, "I wouldn't be seen in them, they're grotty," and none of the Beatles. George Harrison said to him, "What does that mean?" And he went, "It's Liverpool slang," and they went, "We've never heard it."
Oh.
So Alan Owen claims it. Alan Owen claims it was slang from when he was a kid, but there's no uses of the word before this film.
Oh, wow. This must be a nice thing to be able to stake a claim at. You invented a quite successful northern word. Sounded like a bunch of dirty Gerties to me.
I love that. She's a drag. I could watch a whole film about this character. He's so brilliant.
He's amazing.
Just this put upon posho, trying to get it down with the kids.
We can't have him mulling about the studio. He'll turn what's in out. Or at least he might do in the next 3 weeks. I'm not sure. Hang on a minute. What colour was his tie? Blue. Interesting.
Well, he wouldn't tell that because they're in black and white.
What colour was his tie? Kind of grey. Interesting.
Greyish, blackish, whitish.
What colour am I?
Oh,
Greyish, blackish, whitish.
We didn't talk about Victor Spinetti, who plays the director. He's brilliant.
He is very good at it. He plays that kind of put upon studio rep who
he must have been good mates with them because he's in Help and Magical Mystery Tour as well. And that is a very nice sweater he wears.
It is a very nice sweater.
Very fetching.
I would wear that.
He's just so I love just his misplaced superiority. It's I wasn't expecting a musical arranger to question my abilities picture-wise.
He's great. He's got a real not snootiness, but you know what I mean. He's just got that vibe of
everyone, all the grown-ups, for lack of a better word, who just try and lord it over the Beatles, and of course they don't win because they're the Beatles. They'll always win.
Love that. Get him out of here.
This is back when most TV was live. I'd like to imagine that was the case.
Just Wilfrid Bramley slowly rising through the middle of every scene.
There's an old episode of Doctor Who, isn't it, where that happens? The Keys of Marinus. Just remember that scene where Wilfrid Bramley just rises up from the smoke?
Yeah, unless, that was a good episode.
Unless I dreamt that in some kind of...
You're misremembering it. It was the Sensorites. At the end of episode 1, the Sensorite was supposed to be floating outside the spaceship, but it wasn't. Wilfrid Bramley was floating outside.
Hello.
What are you doing in here?
Using his real accent in this, unlike in Steptones. Real Irish accent.
Best joke in the film.
That's very inconsiderate to his poor tape measure.
That was the only tape measure that man could afford. He's now homeless.
He died penniless and drunk. Bloody John Lennon and his scissors.
Every time a John Lennon solo album came out, he had a freak out.
Just flashbacks. The sound of scissors snipping constantly playing in his ear.
And every time it plays back, it's even more grandiose and abstract. So, the scissors get 3 times larger every time.
It's ironically a very Yoko Ono-esque collage of sound and noise that just envelops him.
Yes.
Sound and vision. David Bowie saw this film.
I'm pretty sure that you get to play this bit in the Beatles rock band.
Well, the Beatles rock band emulates a lot of stuff from this film and Help and others. We
had many a good night on it.
I like this song. This song reminds me of going to America for some reason. I think it's because it was playing in the lobby of a hotel in Florida. So whenever I hear it, I always get this nice little nostalgic wash. That's a phrase I've invented, nostalgic wash, and I'm coining it.
It's available in matte or glossy.
I love the way this is shot too. I know we've wanked on about this, but all handheld, all sort of semi-documentary. The camera's just it's like we're just observing or seeing something we shouldn't. Does that make sense?
Yeah, no, I get that.
Yeah,
I get that. It feels like BTS footage.
BTS.
Behind the scenes.
Oh, I thought you were on about the Korean pop band.
Oh no.
I got very confused and upset for a moment.
Unless that Korean pop band have done a remake of A Hard Day's Night.
They might have done, for all I care. I love all this footage. The nerd in me loves all this footage of old studio TV monitors.
Well, I was trying to figure out last night whether it was pre-recorded video that was playing on there or whether it was just a live feed that was being cut between.
That shot would have been a live feed. So that would have been, well, like you say, presumably on video. This is obviously shot on film.
Well, yeah.
But But yeah, that probably would have just been them performing down, and then they just point the camera at the live feed.
That's a nice
shot. Which is another, like I say, of Richard Lester, just with his French New Wave. I've seen his French New Wave films, and he's just seeing how much you can get away with, I guess.
Yeah.
In terms of giving this film a very clear look, and I love this that happens in a moment when we get the J.J. Abrams-esque light blaring right into the camera.
A little bit of lens flare going on.
Yeah. Which apparently when the United Artists... Oh, yeah, look how sexy that is. When United Artists saw the rushes, they were really worried. They was like, oh my God, there's a technical error. The light blasts right into the camera. And they were like, yeah, that's intentional. It actually took us all morning to get that shot right.
Ah, I see. Yes, I was the first person to say that was a great shot. Don't cancel the film.
Well, United Artists didn't really care about the film. I think they just saw it as an excuse to flog some records. So I think they were pleasantly surprised when a film that cost about £500,000 to make ended up making about £8 million in its opening week, which is beyond success for back then.
No, absolutely. Okay, another fan question for you, Ben. What is your favourite Beatles album?
Oh, Sgt. Pepper. I know that's the one that everyone says. I know it's a bit cliche to say that, but it is. With Revolver a close second, I'd say.
Not bad. Not bad choices at all. Respectable choices.
Respectable, yes. That's me, good old respectable me.
Paul
just breaks the fourth wall there.
Yeah. I have sort of shifting sands with Beatles albums. When I was sort of a teenager, Rubber Soul was my jam. I was really into it. And then I drifted more towards Revolver as I got a little bit older. And now I'm sort of transitioning away from Revolver and towards Abbey Road. I really like Abbey Road at the minute.
It all for me, it all comes to a point where every band has like an imperial phase where they're creative, they're at the top of their powers creatively, and everyone else in the public is on board with them. That phase, everything is just coming together, and I think Sgt. Pepper was that for them. They were at the absolute height of their powers as musicians, and at the same time, it sold shitloads. So it's just like everyone was just on board at that time, and it was great.
Yeah, no, it's a culmination of efforts.
Yeah,
you can clearly hear in Pepper where they've come from. You get elements of Rubber Soul in there. There's a little bit of folky stuff. You get elements of Revolver.
Saying that though, the transformation is astonishing. Like, would you have watched this film in 1964? If you imagine going back and thinking that 3 years later they'd do Sgt. Pepper.
Yeah,
3 years later.
It's mad.
And it sounds like a different band. They'd changed so much by that point. In just 3 years.
It's drugs are a hell of a drug.
I mean, even to me, the gap between Rubber Soul and Revolver is incredible, and they came out within about 8 months of each other.
What year was this film released?
64.
64. I was going to say, because 64 was kind of the start of the tipping point into the kind of sort of quasi-psychedelic revolution. You had bands like the Beach Boys beginning to experiment more with acid and sort of making more interesting compositions like California Girls, and eventually next year they'd do Pet Sounds. You'd got bands like the Moody Blues starting to move into more abstract areas. The sort of psychedelic era was just beginning to kick off.
I'd say that you're kind of right, but I don't think it was the start so much as the 64 was like when this sort of the pop rock movement that started in the 50s has sort of reached its absolute height by this point. Like, I mean, you've got the Lads, obviously, but then you've got the Rolling Stones, you've got the Dave Clark 5, the Who were starting around this time. It was just when pop was at its most pop with a capital fucking P.
Yeah,
and then by 65 is when you start getting more psychedelic influences. The hippie movement starts properly by about 66. Lennon and Harrison first take acid the following year, 65. Because a dentist put it in their coffee. That's the story there.
Blimey.
Yeah, they were at an acquaintance's house, a dentist, and for some reason it was really popular back then to spike each other's drinks of acid, which to me sounds fucking terrifying.
Oh, I can imagine.
Can you imagine getting an acid trip without expecting it?
Yeah.
You'd have a breakdown.
Oh, yeah.
But they loved it. They just went, great, where can we get more of this?
I'm just imagining Steve Martin in Little Shop of Horrors.
Yeah. I mean, they hadn't even smoked weed by this point.
Mm.
That wouldn't be until Bob Dylan came along. Another thing which you thought the Harry and Paul sketch had made up.
Yeah.
No, that's based on fact.
I thought they'd done like weed before, because you got to imagine, like 5 years previous to this, they were playing in sex clubs in Hamburg, so I just assumed it was a given.
Well, back then they were more into pills, and amphetamine, speed, that sort of thing.
Quaaludes, stuff like that.
Yeah, things that would help them, like you say in Hamburg, because what they could do is they could take them and then they could just play all night for like 5 hours without getting tired because they'd be just pilled up all night. But yeah, it was. They met up with Bob Dylan in New York, and I like to think it was exactly like the Harry and Paul sketch. Hey, Beatles man, do you want some drugs?
No, thank you, Bob Dylan. We're clean living.
Well, apparently what happened was Bob Dylan offered them some weed, assuming they'd already, like you in a way, assuming they'd already had it, and he was shocked. And no, we've never had it. And he was like, well, "What about that bit in the song where you go, I get high? What are you on about?" And he says, there's a bit in I Want to Hold Your Hand where you go, I get high, and they go, no, it's I get by.
What?
Do you remember the bit in I Want to Hold Your Hand?
Yeah.
And when I touch you, I feel happy inside. Such a feeling that my love, I get by, Well, he thought they were singing I get high. But that's not...
I thought they were singing that.
No, that's not the line.
Really?
Oh, it's I. Oh, sorry, I'm wrong. It's I can't hide. I can't
What?
hide. I can't hide. Look it up. Give it a listen next time.
This is even right. I could just about believe I get by.
Yeah.
I can't believe I can't hide.
Ignore I get by. That was me fucking up. I can't hide is the lyric, but Bob Dylan thought it was I get high. Which, to be fair,
I thought it was I get high.
That's what I'm saying.
It sounds
to
very
be fair,
similar.
it does sound like that.
Yeah.
But that's not the line. But yeah, drugs, eh? Great. So this is the the start of Ringo's little adventure. I love this because Ringo actually has a little emotional journey.
There's a clear narrative arc.
In a way, yeah, there is. He says book the same way you do.
Book. Yeah, it's because I'm from the Midlands. Book is common. Book, Luke and Kook.
My partner says that. It's book.
No, it's not. It's also buzz, not bus.
And it's also look, not Luke.
Well, what noise does an owl make?
An owl goes...
It goes oot. It doesn't go ut.
You're talking in sort of beatnik-esque Dardius slang now. Hood, hood, hood.
Somebody has spiked my cider. I'm on a trip.
The dentist has spiked you.
Laura is in the room. She spiked my cider.
That's a fantastic idea. She should do that one day.
He says you should spike my cider more often.
Yeah, probably.
She says probably.
Yes.
She said I'd probably be more fun.
Well, you might go off and, write one of the greatest pop albums of all time, like the Beatles did.
Probably more likely I would write the most atrocious film of all time.
Atrocious or, quote, experimental? Ringo does a Nazi salute there. Cancelled.
You know what? I really appreciate your definition that the line between awfulness and wonderful experimentation is simply a hair's breadth.
I'll use it in the spirit of the film. I'll use a John Lennon quote where he said, "Avant-garde is French for bullshit."
Yeah, no, I would agree.
Of course, he later went on to make avant-garde art himself. The big hypocrite.
Hey, there's nothing wrong with being expressionistic.
Oh no, Ringo's left the band 5 years too early.
Don't call me Mingo.
Of course, Ringo would have gone to actually leave the band when they were making the White Album for about 5 minutes, then he came back. So basically like this.
Didn't Paul do the drums in his absence?
Yeah, back in the USSR in Dear Prudence is Paul drumming, not Ringo. That's quite funny. I love this.
No, I was saying this. I was going to say I was saying this to you the other night. One of the things that is rather problematic, and funnily enough, this ties into our "Spy Who Loves Me" commentary that we did previously. it's really a pain in the arse to find these kind of remixes of tracks as official album releases. And you told me yesterday about this album, didn't you?
You can find this music that's playing now. So basically, I won't go on too much because this will probably take 90 minutes in itself. But basically, up until Sgt. Pepper, the track listing for the UK and US were different across the albums. I don't know why they did that, but they did. And for the Hard Day's Night copy that came out in the US, they padded it out with music from the film, as in incidental music. And they included this, which is called Ringo's Theme. It's an instrumental version of a song called This Boy. And, Pop Pickers, the guitarist is Vic Flick, who, as well as having a really cool name, also played the guitar in the James Bond theme. It's got that twang to it. Can you hear it?
Yeah. Got that nice, yeah.
If I had to sum up the sound of this time, I'd use the word twang.
Yeah,
That's a very nice onomatopoeic word, isn't it?
There's a lot of very fat guitar.
Fat guitar, I like it.
Yeah,
I like that shot too. Oh, as well, you know what? Everyone praised Ringo at the time for his acting in this bit, for looking, like full-on and sad. Well, the reason he looks full-on and sad is because he was pissed the night before. And when they came to film that morning, he was incredibly hungover.
And could not be asked.
Exactly. So there's some. I think you'll see it when we close in on Ringo later. He looks really tired. Wow, what a racist!
I do that whenever I go to London.
What, fall into tyres and get into arguments with boys that go, "Yeah, Gav, give us that tyre, cool, blimey."
Yeah, but I just shout Southerner at them and then I throw them in the water.
Well, you are an extremely nationalist bigot, after all. I think that's important to stress.
North for the Northerners, that's what I say. And the Midlanders. We can come too.
Oh dear.
Let's just make the North-South divide permanent. We'll draw a line through it, cut it in half.
Make the North great again. Another wholesome story is that shot where they throw the tyre at him. They did it all morning and none of the crew could do it. They kept fucking it up. And then the little boy said, "Can I have a go?" And he did it first time. I like to imagine him like, "Cool, blimey, Governor, give us a go with that apples and pears, Johnny Roger, go up, cool, blimey."
Anyway, gotta go. I gotta go meet some people and rob some people. I'll see you in a bit.
I'm gonna go meet Baz, Daz, Gaz, Baz, and Kaz.
You get Macca. But I am Macca. Brilliant.
Oh. He's interviewed on one of the extras. He seems like a nice guy.
What, the lad or Ringo?
The little boy.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, he seems like a nice guy.
That's good.
I mean, how many other people can say, "When I was a kid"? That is so funny. I love that when Victor Spinetti says that. "If he says that one more time, I shall strike him." It's kind of like a Coen Brothers film, this, in the way that, like, the Beatles are great to watch, obviously, but all the supporting characters are all brilliant. They all get their own stories and little situations and characters.
I love that sandwich.
They're not just... What's on it?
It looks like fish.
Oh, God, keep it away from me, then. And I love the fact that it's very sad and funny, the fact that Ringo, he's going to get kicked out of the pub. And he doesn't get kicked out of the pub because he's a Beatle. He just gets kicked out for being a clumsy twat.
Well, this entire section of Ringo running away was secretly directed by Ken Loach. I don't know if you noticed, they snuck him in late at night because he asked them to vow it to secrecy. It has got a very sort of kitchen sink theatre, Ken Loachy vibe to it, this bit, doesn't it? This is it's a world that's long gone now, isn't it? All like flat caps and Macs and, you know. I mean, much to the protestation of the majority of the proletariat, unfortunately, but
it's just quite sad and melancholy. Is it possible to feel nostalgia for a period of history that you weren't in?
I would say so. If you have an attachment to it, if you are aware of the context of its existence, I imagine you could feel nostalgic for it. It's a simpler time.
I wonder if there's a word for that. If there isn't, we'll invent one.
Yes. Some kind of anostalgia.
This was the good old days before cigarettes gave you cancer.
Yeah. I think that's probably the best word to describe it. Analstalgia.
Analstalgia.
Yes. As in anal as in historical, nostalgia as in nostalgia.
Not bad. Not bad.
Historical nostalgia.
We'll workshop it.
Just the general feeling of the word nostalgia for an era that you either experienced or did not experience.
Analstalgia. I'm going to start using that word. I'm just going to pretend that it comes from like some historical book or dictionary.
Hey, that's how language develops, my friend. Words get created and then are used in prominence until they become the word.
Grotty.
See, grotty.
Grotty. Yeah.
ANNALST.
You wouldn't get this nowadays. Can you imagine if they made a film about, say, like One Direction, where they're all puffing away in every scene? That never happened.
In fact, I'd be disappointed if they weren't shooting up. Let's be honest.
Shooting. Just casually pulling needles out.
Like exactly the same jokes as this film.
Yeah.
You know.
No, give John another 4 years before he starts doing that.
Are you a mod or a rocker?
I realised listening that the Beatles themselves are voicing these policemen.
Oh bloody hell, so they are.
Yeah. They must have been doing the looping and then they just said, oh, while you're here, you might as well.
Yeah, fair play. They do a good job.
Yeah, I only noticed this on a few years ago when I was watching it. I was like, that voice sounds very familiar.
I do this for Laura every time I take her out.
What, throw in a puddle?
Yeah, all right.
Pretty much.
Even this little thing that's about to happen now.
Yes. Especially now.
That was a very speeded up fall she just did.
It was. She broke both her legs. It was a 7-foot drop.
Almost like they went, that was too slow, we need to speed that up.
It's not haha funny, it's oh dear funny.
Do you know the word Beatles is never said in this film?
Really?
Yeah, they say the names of the Beatles, and you see the word Beatles like written on things, but no one actually says the word out loud.
Maybe.
Visit tytdreviews.com for more fun facts like that.
Okay, I think I've got it. I think I've got why. It's because if the film had been a flop, the Beatles could have broken away from it because they aren't actually mentioned in the film.
They're not mentioned in the film, but they are in it.
Yes.
Like
they could basically be like, well, yeah, we were in it, but we weren't mentioned in it, so...
That is an excellent rationale. I'm sure that was exactly the reasoning.
Yeah.
See, I love this. You've got the so-called youthful rebels, and the old man is the most anarchistic of them all.
It's great to see how times have changed.
Yeah. It's a nice little subversion, is what I'm saying.
Oh yeah. Oh god. This is just like an advert for the IRA at this point. Let's skip it along.
We've got another spice head in, lads.
I think that's the only thing that could have improved Spice World is having Wilfrid Brimley. Wilfrid Bramley.
Stick him in the back.
Yeah. You girls are all right.
He's so funny in this. He's really good. I like how he runs off in a minute and they just don't care about him that much. They just they let him go. Oh, he's just a crazy old fucking nutter off the street.
Old man yells at Cloud.
Next time you get arrested, try that.
Try and catch me now. Well, actually, we were just about to let you go.
Maybe if he was in America, he'd be a sovereign citizen, wouldn't he?
Pretty much.
I'm a freeman of the land. You ever seen those?
No, I haven't.
Oh, I'll tell you later. It's far too depressing and funny for this.
Oh, this is the Brubeck cover of A Hard Day's Night that I really liked.
Well, George Martin orchestrated all this.
It's gorgeous.
Yeah.
It genuinely sounds like Brubeck.
George Martin, whose score got nominated for an Academy Award, and yet the Beatles' music didn't, which I think is a bit unfair. It's like they did a lot of work too, you know? Yeah, it's cool. It's jazzy.
It's swinging.
I want to drink coffee and smoke fags while listening to this, and I don't do either of those things.
I finished my pint of spiked LSD cider, and now I'm onto the LSD spiked coffee.
Now, this is the kind of music you'd sit at 2 o'clock in the morning wearing sunglasses indoors, clicking your fingers to no one.
It's a collection that I'm building up quite well myself. Cool swinger.
He's literally a swinger. He's swinging the camera crane down. Swinger. He's swinging the thing down. Swinging the thing.
I don't get it, Ben. What are you implying?
You see him often, don't you? The rap singers.
What's rap? I don't listen to jazz.
And yeah, Can't Buy Me Love Again. Why not?
Why not? Oh wait, we've got to get a bust Ringo out of jail and get him back to the studio for the gig section. And then it all turns into Spice World for a bit. There's a bit of a weird runaround chase, and it ends with like a 10-minute performance.
And then they get chased by the entire Metropolitan Police Force. This is what they were doing back in the 60s. There wasn't a lot of crime about. You know what I love? You know, I was talking earlier about this is a snapshot of a world that's just long gone now. Like those old buildings that were like, those were
still bombed out.
Those were remnants from the Blitz.
Yeah.
Yeah, like that was still sort of. You'd get these odd places in London that still sort of like bombed out from the war. It just, you know.
It's an interesting snapshot of the time, not necessarily a accurate portrayal of social life in 60s London, but it in many ways is an honest reflection of 60s life in London.
I totally agree with that statement. Yeah, it doesn't have to be realistic. There's loads of films that do that. You know, you want to watch Kathy Come Home or something like that if you want like a glimpse of, or you know, the quote unquote kitchen sink dramas of the time that were becoming a big thing. The loneliness of the long distance runner, all that jazz. Kes.
The finishing line.
Finishing line. Well, that's just a snuff film. Do you like how John Lennon ran out and then ran around the set and came back?
Yes,
that's quite funny.
It's a nice touch. I like the fact that John is now at the back of the police queue, chasing the police.
See, I love this. This film is it's full of character. Like even this little part of the car thief, who doesn't even get any lines, but he gets a little story. It's brilliant.
It's a very iconic film. There's so many shots that would come to define this period of the Beatles' life.
Oh, totally. There's just something so right in early 60s about the Beatles being chased by police while Can't Buy Me Love plays.
Absolutely.
All news in Irish, because like you say, this is UTV.
There are some fates worse than death.
Unless it stands for something like, I don't know, Unbreakable TV, I don't know. What's a good word?
Ultra TV.
Ultra TV, which sounds like a Japanese channel.
Everything runs at double speed.
Yeah.
Everybody's pupils are dilated like 3 times bigger than they should be. Luke, can one of you buy a pair of platform heels and just get it over with?
Come on, we gotta do the big show.
And this is the equivalent of the Spice World finale.
Yes, except not as cynical and just fun and wholesome and great. And apparently the screaming of these girls was so loud that one of the cameramen had to go to the dentist because his filling came out.
Oh, Jesus.
Yeah. That's how loud
Bloody hell.
This sound of orgasmic teenage abandon.
I just fancy a cup of tea. Can't be arsed with that, mate.
I've got a filling in my tooth. If I was there that day, that might have come out.
Hey, I've got a filling in my tooth too. We could have both ended up in the dentist, and then we could have ended up spiked.
Oh, great. Apparently, I say apparently, but it's not apparently, it's true. Phil Collins is in this scene.
Really?
Yep, he's in the crowd. He was like,
blimey.
He was like 10.
Yeah. And to think, if we'd have got a time machine, we could have gone back and saved the world from Susudio.
Yeah, but then you wouldn't have had, Against All Odds, and then where would we be in life?
Is this the bit where we cut to Lionel Hutz with that speech bubble above his head with like people joining hands under a smiling sun?
I'd love it if it's when like the shot he's actually in is really, really quick. You'd never notice it. But I'd love to think that what they should do is just have a shot of him the way he looks now.
Well, last time I saw him, he was on oxygen, so...
Okay, maybe not now. Maybe in his mid-80s prime. Even though in my mind, Phil Collins has always been 43.
Basically.
Like, every time I see or hear him, he just always feels like he's 43 years old.
On the 12th strike of his 18th birthday, he underwent a John Landis American Werewolf in London-style transformation and erupted aged 44.
Yeah, you just see him now amongst all the teenage, dolly birds.
16, 16, 16, 78, 16, 16, 16.
On the documentary on one of the videos or DVDs, he hosts one of the documentaries and they make a really big deal out of it.
Oh, wow.
I guess I'm trying to imply, that, this film is responsible for Genesis.
So, again, another thing, another area of the world.
Yes. The biggest sin of all. Ding. There's some shots that just break my heart in this sequence because I try and look at these these girls screaming. I try and imagine where they are now, and I try and imagine that they grew up to be like musicians or poets or artists or creative people, but they probably grew up to be estate agents and bank managers just like the rest of us. And there's a weird beauty in that as well.
Statistically, 2/3 of these people voted for Brexit, so
well,
let that sink in.
This film is over 50 years old now, so you may have a point there.
This is the sad reality, really.
Like, imagine if you got all these people back. Like, if you somehow tracked down every single extra in this scene.
Filled the auditorium all up again.
Yeah.
Had cardboard cutouts for George and John.
They're all like wheezing and puffing because they're all on oxygen, like Phil Collins.
The best they can muster is.
Okay, so we want you to scream just like you did back then.
Discovered the music video Coming Up by Paul McCartney.
Yeah.
And in that music video, him and Linda McCartney play pretty much all of the performers in the music video.
Oh, yeah, I've seen it, yeah.
And it was nice to see him dressed as his Beatles self.
Oh, yeah.
Very briefly. Well after the fact, doing the whole woo.
George Harrison did that as well in one of his later videos.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, he was, which was cute because out of the four, he always seemed like the one who wanted to distance himself from it as much as possible. After it all ended, so it was cute to see him. Like, he was the one who was like the most, when they were doing Anthology years later, he was the one who was the biggest holdout on doing that and on doing those the quote unquote new John Lennon songs that came out. Yeah, this scene really does break my heart. It's not quite as good as the opening of Help, which also opens up with a performance of similar to this. But I feel like if you were like an alien, or someone who's been in a cave with Japanese soldiers for 70 years, and you wanted to explain the 60s to someone, you just show them this, and I think they just get it.
I think they'd probably
really
just get
would.
it, but they'd also be terrified of anybody under the age of 18 in the UK. Because they're just mindless, screaming harpies.
They're not harpies. They're all They're all beautiful, amazing people. I don't mean beautiful in the sense of, "Good, look at them." I mean they're just beautiful in how they are, just how open they are in this scene and how emotional they are. I love it.
Ben, let's be honest and blunt. If any of that crowd caught any of those Beatles, they'd be ripped apart in 3 seconds and picked to the bone in 10.
I don't think there's any doubt in that. But they're just, this level of adoration is just fantastic about it. And it's not like it's for something that's really great as well. It's not some, like, the Beatles were that rare thing. They were really fantastic musicians, and they enjoyed massive mainstream success.
Yeah, and it's not something that we'll probably ever see again in our lifetime, that level of universal it's pandemonium.
It's happened frequently throughout pop music, but I just don't think to this, to the point where...
This level.
The point where everything's just right. It's like that phrase I said before, everyone's on board. I know that sounds very American and businessman-likey, but what I mean by that is, it's like, everyone's just on the same page. The music's great. They deserve all the praise and attention they're getting. They deserve the fame. Let's just enjoy it.
Yeah, no, I agree with that.
Yeah.
I agree with that. I was going to ask you as well, to date this commentary, what do you reckon to Peter Jackson's upcoming documentary?
Well, I will watch it. I think I'll definitely watch it. It looks good. I don't want him to sort of gloss over the more unpleasant parts of that story, because it was an unpleasant part of their history, the Let It Be, Get Back period. And I think the film should reflect that, because that would be honestly what happened. I don't really mind if, like, for example, they touched on it for one scene and then the rest of the film was just talking about the good stuff. What I think would be more sort of thingy for me is if it was like, well, you thought they all hated each other and were splitting up. This is the real story of what happened. Like, I'm not a fan of revisionism.
Yeah.
If you're gonna focus on the good stuff, fine. But I think that it's good to focus on the fact that it was a dark time for them, and there was a statement I was reading the other day that apparently they're gonna I was reading the other day that apparently they're gonna make the original Let It Be available as well.
Oh, that's good.
So if they do that, great. You can make the other one nice and fluffy and happy if you want. As long as you make the original available, that's fine.
I'd be very curious to see Let It Be, because I've never actually sat and watched it.
Oh, I've seen it a few times. It's just depressing. It's just really, like, sad, because you're just watching 4 people who are just drifting apart. There's no, like, it's sad because there's no real, like, there's no big arguments. It's not like that Metallica documentary where they're all shouting and swearing at each other. It's more like there's just an awkward vibe in the air. It feels like you're at a pub with 4 people who just are not getting on, and there's just that silence. You know what I mean?
Yeah, there's that
you just
underlying electric tension.
Yeah, you just want to get out of there and be anywhere else, which is in stark contrast to this film, which couldn't be more joyful and happy and,
whimsical.
We're all busy mates. But that's for another commentary, I guess. We'll talk more.
That's for another time and another day.
Talk more about Let It Be.
I love this bit.
Hey,
callback. And now they head into their Beatles copter, which crashes 10 seconds later after being destroyed by Stromberg.
To the Beatles copter.
When it reaches maximum rotation, it actually plays A Hard Day's Night.
Yes, I'd like that.
Yeah. Come on, Beatles, we're off to America.
To the B copter. Yeah.
The Beatles never made it home.
And then they fly off and live happily ever after.
And everyone was rich, and there was no suffering ever again.
And they stayed together forever and ever. Dennis O'Bell.
And they released 400 albums, 20 of which were successful.
While I'm on my little soapbox here, it always pisses me off when people, still to this day, cling on to this notion of Yoko Ono split up the Beatles. Which she didn't. The Beatles
were fucked before
the
then.
Beatles split up the Beatles. There was a lot, because it's like, what's the implication these people are saying? That, like, if John had never met Yoko, they'd still be together now and they'd make 400 albums. It's like, no, that's ridiculous.
No, agreed.
They might have stayed together a little longer, but they would have still split up pretty soon after.
Oh yeah, yeah. I mean, like I say, it's the problem that comes with being that tightly packed with so many people you know for so long.
Yeah.
You inevitably, it creates some level of tension.
I mean, to take it back to this film, you got to imagine 1964 to 1965. They'd done 2 world tours. They were making a film, and they were recording 3 albums, all in that space of time. So you are going to get sick of each other after a while, and get on each other's nerves, and get.
I mean,
up.
we can only just make it past pint number 2 before I'm ready to glass you. So
Yeah, but the difference is, me and you aren't flying around the world making films and selling records.
We're not.
I think I read somewhere they had like 1 day off in 1964. Or something ridiculous like that. I don't know if it was 1 day or like a week. But even then, that's not a lot of time, is it?
No, it's not a lot of time. It's a bloody hell. Yeesh.
And there's the lovely people who restored the film.
Thank you very much to those lovely people.
So I know you're watching the DVD copy, but the Blu-ray is very, very nice.
It was one of those times where I went to look up the cheapest possible copy because I wasn't sure if I was going to like it or not, and I needed to get a copy to watch it.
Yeah.
And the version that I picked up was the DVD version. It's all right. It does the job of being a first-time watch. I'd probably upgrade. What I would like if they could put together some kind of nice box set of the Beatles films.
Yeah, they should do that. I don't think they can because of the rights are a bit all over the place. They could do it for Magical Mystery. Oh, hang on. I think they could do it. Ironically, I think the only one they could do a box set, but I don't think they could do it for this film.
Oh,
because this film is owned by Sony at the moment, and the other 4 are owned by Apple, the Beatles' own company. So they could probably do a nice box set which had Help, Magical Mystery Tour, Yellow Submarine, and Let It Be, but just not this one. But I mean,
have they done any kind of Blu-ray set of the music videos?
Oh yeah, they did one years ago. They did the One album.
Yeah,
there's a Blu-ray of that with all the videos and promotional films on, and it's so great. It's Strawberry Fields Forever in the video for that looks so brilliant in HD. They've really gone to town on it, and Penny Lane video looks fantastic. Looks like it was fucking filmed yesterday. It's just so clear and so pristine.
Because I was going to say, I definitely saw the Strawberry Fields Forever HD video on YouTube, and I thought it looked incredible, but I wasn't sure if they'd ever actually compiled them in Blu-ray quality.
Oh yeah. Go get. I'm saying this more to people listening, as opposed to you. But go and watch. Go and buy the one. It's called the Beatles One, as in the number 1. The Blu-ray set of that. It's got all the promotional videos they did, and all the music videos and some TV appearances and just bits and pieces. It's got the film they made for A Day in the Life, which looks so brilliant in HD. Oh, it looks like it was made the other day. It's so clear. It's just like.
And if we're
sorry, go on.
I was going to say, and if we're on the subject as well of promoting recent Beatles work, I can highly, highly, highly recommend that they check out Giles Martin's recent remasterings of the existing Beatles albums. They are next level. I have never heard the Beatles sound the way that they do on those albums. It's just insane.
Yeah, I think Giles Martin actually did some audio remixing for the One set as well that I've just been talking about. So that they sound very nice and crystal clear. And have you ever seen the video for A Day in the Life?
I haven't, no.
It's just it's a 16mm recording of when they shot the orchestral bit. It goes to.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, and they had all their mates there. They had the Rolling Stones fucking turned up, and Pattie Boyd, who we've just watched, and Michael Nesmith.
Oh wow!
Is there at one point, and you're just watching it, and you're just getting so upset because you just think, "Oh, that looks like such fun. Why aren't I there?" And you just know they're all drugged up to the eyeballs as well. But it's just brilliant.
Oh, wow.
Watching George Martin and Paul McCartney sort of orchestrate and direct the orchestra and tell them how to, what they wanted out of them.
Blimey. Be a blast.
So good.
Well,
shall we? I think that's enough gushing now for an hour and a half.
Well, I just want to say again, thank you so much to GDawg 15 for
GDawg,
suggesting.
you are the man.
Yeah, you're the man now, dog. And we'll.
You're the man now, dog. You're the man now, dog. You're the man now, dog.
And yeah, thank you so much for joining us on the Comedy Dining Experience as we do a Hard Day's Night. Join us next time when we will be covering something else.
That's true. Can't argue with that.
Please infer that with an ominous tone.
Right. Sorry for everyone who fell asleep while I was going on about the Beatles. You can all wake up now and watch something else.
It's been a delight. You've been very, very informative. It's been very interesting to hear about the time as much as the people, if you know what I mean.
Yeah. To the best of my the best of my acquired knowledge, anyway.
We shall have to do some more.
Yes, thank you, Tim.
Right, everybody, take care, stay safe, go out, fight your enemies, drink milk, punch through concrete. Love you all very much. We're going to go now. We're going through a tunnel and we're disappearing forever. Take care, and bye-bye.
Go to bed.